What's up everybody, Adrian here, back with another video. This time we're gonna look at an article talking about a possible Scarface remake. So they say any story worth telling is worth telling twice. Who the hell says that? With an increased number of new films being adaptations of existing IP from comics to games to older films, Oscar-nominated filmmaker Luca Guadagnino, if that's how you pronounce it, the mastermind behind previous remakes including Suspiria, A Bigger Splash, recently revealed to Variety the intentions behind his next film, which is going to be a remake of Scarface. Let's talk about who this director is. Basically, when I looked him up, he is a far left, super progressive. All you have to do is look at some of the things he directed. Here's a movie he directed, Call Me By Your Name. The plot synopsis is, in 1980s Italy, romance blossoms between a 17-year-old student boy and an older man hired as his father's research assistant. Another film that he directed, which was a remake, called Suspiria. Now, I love the original horror movie Suspiria. It was amazing, visually beautiful. But this remake I didn't see, but I did look up the reviews. It was basically an SJW, anti-male, super feminine fuckfest. And all his other films were basically like shorts, documentaries, and he made some other films too, but all in the vein of a super progressive storyline. So he says, people claim that I do only remakes, but the truth of the matter is cinema has been remaking itself throughout its existence. It's not because it's a lazy way of not being able to find an original stories. Actually, that's exactly what it's about. It's always about looking at what certain stories say about our times. True, unless the time we're living in now is a far left cancel culture. When people think of Scarface, they usually thinking of the 1983 film starring Al Pacino playing role of Cuban refugee Tony Montana, whose violent and colorful rise to the highest ranks as a drug lord and mob boss has become the stuff of pop culture legends. But the Pacino film itself was a remake of another film made back in 1932, which in turn was adopted from the 1930 novel Scarface. So the story of Tony Montana is one that has been told time and time again over the years. Making another movie adaptation of the story is justified as long as the story is told well. That is a big if. The first Scarface from Howard Hawks was all about the Prohibition era. 50 years later, Oliver Stone and Brian De Palma make their version, which is so different from the Hawks film. Both can stand on the shelf as two wonderful pieces of sculpture. Hopefully ours, 40 plus years later, will be another worthy reflection on a character who is paradigm for our own compulsions, for excess and ambitions. I think my version will be very timely. Universal Pictures has been working on getting the remake off the ground for the past decade for a failure to assemble a full team of interested parties, from writers to directors, had put the kibosh on their efforts. Narcos Mexico actor Diego Luna, this guy right here, had long been attached to play the new Tony Montana in the reboot, but the process of getting the film together had taken so long that he was forced to drop out of the project. It remains to be which new talent will be stepping in Pacino's legendary shoes to put a new spin on the legend of Tony Montana. So that's basically the whole article. Now let's dissect this because there's a lot to talk about here. Let's talk about Diego Luna that was originally picked. I'm glad he dropped out because I get it. He's Mexican. You're not gonna quote unquote whitewash the character like with Al Pacino. But this guy right off the bat, he looks like a skinny wimp. I know Tony was like short and, just a regular guy, but he was basically like a pit bull. You get him angry, you talk about his sister, he'll kill you. So let's talk about real fast the original Scarface 1932 black and white film. This was done in an era where you had those film noir gangster movies, and all the actors that played the gangsters talked like, yeah, see? Yeah, dame. If you call a girl dame now, you'll be canceled for being an anti-woman misogynist. This was made in an era talking about the Prohibition. You didn't have cursing, you didn't have gratuitous violence or sex, but it worked for the time. Now let's talk about Scarface 1983. 1983 is a very different time. The culture shifted. You could get away with gratuitous violence, cursing, sex, drugs. Plus you mixed it in with the 80s cheese, like the dancing, the colorful outfits, the clubs, the synthesizers, over the top crazy lines and action scenes. Like, it worked. So now let's get to Tony Montana, Al Pacino. He made it his own. He created his own character. He embodied that character. You forgot it was Al Pacino. So I think making a remake is a very bad idea. So no matter who you get to play Tony Montana, it's not gonna be as good as Al Pacino. And they're always gonna be comparing it to Al Pacino, just like how every Joker is gonna be compared to Heath Ledger. Another big part why the new Scarface remake will fail is because the era, the culture, the times have changed. What they got away with in 1983, you can never get away with in 2020. The era we're living in now is like this far left, super sensitive SJW, beta cuck, anti-male, super feminist, pink pussy hat wearing cancel culture. So how the hell are they going to show a Tony Montana in this time? Are you gonna have a Tony Montana that's gonna interact with some woman that's gonna tell him off? Is she gonna dominate him? Is she gonna like call him names and smack him around if he gets too masculine towards her? Here's a fun fact about the 1983 Scarface. The director Oliver Stone, to prepare for this movie, he went undercover into Colombia as like basically a drug mule, and he interacted with actual drug lords and tried to figure out how all this drug running, smuggling worked. And he spent years undercover. He took the drugs, he dealt with actual crime lords and drug lords. So when he came back, he knew how to write the screenplay and how to direct it to make it as authentic as possible. Is the new director going to do that? I highly doubt it. He's gonna make his version of a super progressive, far left Scarface Tony Montana. So basically the director is gonna make a film kind of like this. Probably about open borders, kids in cages, and he's gonna basically castrate Tony Montana. Instead of remaking Scarface, come up with a new story, come up with a new character. I don't even know why they're even touching Scarface. I know Scarface is a little dated, but it still works. And a current remake is not even gonna come close. And even if it stands alone and has nothing to do with the 1983 version, everyone's gonna be comparing it to that. You can't get away with anything in this cancel culture. So what's the point? I get it. Some films should be remade. Like the 1932 version of Scarface, that needed to be remade because it was in black and white. You had those gangsters talking all weird. It was about prohibition. Different doesn't always mean better. So let me know what you think of this article. Do you want a new remake of Scarface, or should they not even touch the 1983 Scarface? Thanks for watching. See you next video.